Good morning, everybody. I call the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the DuPage County Board to order. I invite everyone to stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Zay, will you please lead in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I now invite Pastor Jeannie Forrest Banza from Christ Community Church in Wheaton to lead us in the invocation.
Good morning. In the words of Ella Wheeler Wilcox, there is no chance, no destiny, no fate that can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. We come and we're gathered here this morning, centered in this room, with every voice that matters, with every mover, with every shaker, with a purpose. That purpose is to serve the community of DuPage County. Every family, every child, every student, knowing and remembering that you are enough. For every resolution that will be done today, for every decision that will be made today, will be made in peace and harmony, knowing that the end result will be good. There's nothing impossible, but we do know this, that all things are possible with God. Amen.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the roll.
Member Cahill. Here. Member Childress. Yes. Member Covert.
Here.
Member Desart. Here. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans.
Here.
Member Galassi. Here. Member Garcia.
Here.
Member Heather. Here. Member Honig. Here. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Here. Member Ozog. Here. Member Rutledge. Here. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Here. Member Yu.
Here.
And Member Zay.
Okay, Member Desart, I'm not trying to get bonus points, but I think I should get them for this because this is something we did in DC. I'd like to invite Member Heather to come up and join me, please. Okay, March is Women's History Month. Today, we recognize Women's History Month in DuPage County and by honoring a DuPage woman who has made and continues to make history. Lucy Westlake is an American mountaineer from Naperville. I love that title because, as you'll see from our proclamation, even after being the youngest female to climb Mount Everest and the youngest woman to summit all of the highest points in the contiguous U.S., Lucy is still reaching for new goals and new heights. Lucy cannot be with us today, but we did get a chance to meet her and talk with her last week when we were attending the National Association of Counties meeting in Washington, D.C. Lucy now attends University of Southern California and is interning with Congressman Mark DeSawyer, his office on Capitol Hill. Allow me to read the proclamation we presented to Lucy, and then we'll play a short recorded video, and Member Heather will have a few words to say about our impressive encounter with Lucy. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, athletics, arts, policy, and humanities, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas the theme for this year's National Women's History Month is moving forward together, women educating and inspiring generations, honoring women who educate, mentor, and inspire others. And whereas DuPage County and Naperville's own world-class athlete, mountaineer, and environmental advocate, Lucy Westlake, is a person whose life educates and inspires new generations of women and men. And whereas Lucy began climbing mountains at the age of 7 and set her first mountaineering record at the age of 12. She holds an American record as the youngest woman to summit Mount Everest, as well as a world record as the youngest female to summit the highest mountains in each of the 50 U.S. states. And whereas Lucy runs cross country and track at the University of Southern California, she is a 2-time U.S. Triathlon Junior All-American and has worked to provide scholarship opportunities for young women interested in mountaineering. And whereas, after tackling the world's largest mountains, Lucy Westlake has turned her attention to working on one of the most challenging hills in America as an intern on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Lucy is gaining valuable experience as she seeks to develop and promote international policies mitigating the impact of climate change on pristine mountain environments. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deborah A. Conroy, Chair of the DuPage County Board, and members of the County Board do hereby designate March as Women's History Month and honor athlete, international mountaineer, and future policy leader Lucy Westlake, whose skill, bravery, tenacity, and leadership will influence future generations and whose experience on high-altitude mountains will fuel her advocacy to help preserve the world's vitally important, pristine natural areas.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, I got a lot of work to do because she's like so impressive. Hey, now we did take a video, so we're going to share that with you. And Joe and Craig, before you play the short video, please note it was recorded in a room with significant echoes. We tried to boost the audio so you can hear it better. Please play the clip.
Women's History Month, we could not be more thrilled than to have Lucy Westlake, who is a treasure of DuPage County. Lucy has climbed so many mountains. She's summited Mount Everest and many others. She's the youngest woman to do it, and now she's summiting Washington, D.C. And we are so excited to see where Lucy goes, and we're so grateful because you're setting forth a path that other women can aspire to. You've done things that maybe many women have never even felt they could do. So thank you for your courage, for your leadership, and we are going to spend all of our time watching you change the world.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored. Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy belated International Women's Day to everyone. There are very few moments in your life when your kids think the work that you're doing is cool, or if we go by the current lingo, fire. During our visit to DC to attend the NACO conference, I would talk to my daughter every day, tell her what we're going to do today and what we did all day. And when I told her about Lucy, she was so excited. And guess what she said? Fire. It was truly inspiring for all of us to have the opportunity to meet with Lucy in DC. Thank you, Joan, for making that happen. I don't know how you pulled that off, but kudos to you. Lucy is so energetic, so humble, and had the biggest smile on her face throughout the time we spent with her. She told us that she started climbing at the ripe old age of 7 with her dad, and has set the record of climbing all 50 summits in the US. And not just that, she has also climbed the highest peaks in South America, in Europe, and in Africa. And she didn't stop there. She graduated 6 months early from Naperville North High School, because sure, why not? And set another record of climbing Mount Everest at 18 years and 6 months of age in 25 days, when an average time to climb the Everest is about 45 to 65 days. She did that in 25 days. As Chair mentioned, she now studies at University of Southern California and is spending the semester there in DC studying, climbing, and interning for the House of Representatives from California. We are so proud that Lucy is from DuPage, and I'm especially proud that Lucy is from District 5. She's not only a record setter to help put DuPage on a global map, but also an international world-class athlete who has inspired a whole new generation of young kids to follow their dreams as well. During our conversation, I mentioned to her about my daughter, and I said how inspiring it was for my daughter to know that I'm meeting you today. And she said, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, to inspire the next generation of young leaders to follow their goals and their dreams. I just want to conclude by saying that, Lucy, not only are you inspiring young kids, you're inspiring us grown-ups too. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so talk about impressive. It was very exciting to get to meet Lucy, and I hope everybody goes home and tells all their kids about it. I have 4 sons that are hearing about it all the time. What do you mean you can't take out the garbage? I know somebody who climbed Mount Everest when she was 8 years, yeah. Okay, on the matter of public comment, according to our county board rules, members of the public shall be afforded time to address the board. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes in length, nor shall the total time provided for all remarks exceed 30 minutes. Our state's attorney will call the names of those who have signed up to speak.
Mrs. Rugg. It's getting tiring, more tired every time I come here. I want to just make 2 brief statements. I don't know your name, the gentleman right here in front of me. This lady had you raise your right hand, and the other lady that just spoke, I don't know your name either. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States of America? 2 female judges. I do. Then she said, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the state of Illinois? You said, I do. You said, I do. But you know, the woman that makes you say those things doesn't believe in it. Nobody here believes in it. This is ILCS. Heading, Article 2, Rights of Drainage. These are legal papers that everyone here should honor and obey. They don't want to honor it. You know who else doesn't want to honor it? Bob Berlin. The DAs that sit here, they don't care about these laws. If someone comes to you for 10 years and say you have a problem, they're not only flooding me, they're flooding out a 144-bed nursing home. I heard somebody said that Sarah Hunn was supposed to go there. I brought that up to Sarah Hunn, knew about it when I showed it to Mr. Noonan 10 years ago. They don't care. She doesn't care about, see that paper? That's a bona fide legal document showing the articles, whatever you call them, that you have to follow if you live in the state of Illinois. She doesn't care. She breaks them all the time. But she wants you to raise your hand, promising that you'll honor this. But she won't. I'm proof. Talk about mountains to climb. I've been climbing a mountain for 10 years. And they're deliberately flooding people out because they don't want to pay the money to fix it. They'd rather just let them flood out and walk through water. The other thing that really hurts me and I got here late, just by chance. This was from January 31st, 25. Manager editor of the DuPage County Historical Museum, Michelle Padkawa.
Mrs. Raguer at 3 minutes.
Okay, she wrote a piece about the history of the DuPage County Fair. I'm just going to read the first little bit. The DuPage County Fair in
Raguer,
Wheaton
you're
represents
over
the
3 minutes,
importance of
Mrs. Rock.
agriculture
Please
in the
conclude your
county, has
comment.
brought joy in local community for over 180 years. You got a woman from Detroit. How long have you been here? Destroying it. And you're letting it happen. It's not hers to put an IDOT building. It belongs to everybody in the county, not her.
Mrs. Raguer, time for
I'm
public
going to
comment.
let you have a copy of this. You buckle under them, and she allows it to happen.
Okay. If the board has received public comment via our online portal per board policy, those comments were provided to members yesterday so they could be reviewed. Comments submitted electronically will be included in the minutes of this meeting. And now we're going to move on to a presentation by Grounded Solutions. When I took office, one of my top priorities was to research and begin planning for DuPage to seek affordable housing solutions. Our Housing Solutions Committee has spent the past year learning, hearing people's stories, listening to the experiences of builders, residents, planners, zoning staff, and our national experts with Grounded Solutions Network. Our county team and Colby Sledge from Grounded Solutions are here to summarize what we've learned. They will lay out some choices we have moving forward. Welcome, and the floor is yours when you get there.
Good morning. I just want to introduce Colby Sledge. Him and his team at Grounded Solutions have worked tirelessly, as the chair had said. So I'll just give the floor right to him because he's got the information you all need.
Hi, good morning, board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As mentioned, I'm Colby Sledge. I'm the local policy principal at Grounded Solutions Network. We are a national nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the creation and preservation of what we call lasting affordable homes. In other words, affordable housing that stays affordable through generations. And we had the privilege of working with DuPage County over the past 18 months or so through a cohort group called For Everyone Home. We were actually introduced to you through a meeting that happened where one of our members at the Chicago Housing Trust, Jenny Franzak, had talked about the work that we have done with them over the years. And so we were then thankfully and gratefully invited to work with the county on your housing strategies and housing solutions. If we can go to the next slide. So the cohort group that we have was called For Everyone Home. It's an initiative that was nationally grant funded and you were actually part of the second cohort that happened in this initiative. The first one happened actually right at the start of 2020 and through most of 2021. That cohort involved San Antonio, Indianapolis, and Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Your cohort, we paired DuPage County with Mecklenburg County. We did the county level this time. Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, that's where Charlotte is the county seat. So together, elected officials and leaders from both of those counties worked for about 18 months through what we call a technical assistance, peer learning, and community engagement program. What you see is members of both cohorts. When we had a cohort meeting in Nashville, which is where I am from, back in September, we were actually standing in front of a permanently affordable housing townhome complex in Nashville that's part of a shared equity program that was established several years ago. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So I do not expect you to read this. I just wanted to give you a sense of the breadth of work that we did. This was a 5-phase program that had 3 primary deliverables. The first of those deliverables is kind of right in the middle of that slide. It was called the Housing Underproduction Analysis. That was created, as the chair mentioned, in consultation with leaders, with community members, through interviews, through a kind of steering committee meeting that we had almost to the day, exactly a year ago here, and we did a couple of site visits in the county. That housing under production analysis was created in partnership with our partners at Up for Growth, which is a pro-housing a pro-housing nonprofit as well. They have an economist on staff, Mike Wilkerson, who helped create that analysis, and I believe you have access to that. Then from there, we created the main thing that we're talking about today, which is our housing action plan. So we can go to the next slide. Our housing action plan came out of this early phase work, which involved reviewing the housing under production report, also stakeholder interviews. This was our first stakeholder or community engagement session meeting here at the administrative complex. We partnered in both counties. We partnered with a community engagement organization, a partner who was on the ground, who had deep community ties. Here, that was the DuPage Federation on Human Services Reform. That was one major finding we had from our first cohort, which was we really wanted to ensure that we were working hand in hand with organizations that had long-standing experience with folks who were experiencing housing needs, who were looking for housing of all types and at all levels throughout their county and their municipalities. We'll go to the next slide, please. And so what came out of that, again, is our housing action report, which presented a roadmap for increasing both housing supply and housing affordability throughout the county. So what we did is we grouped those into our three greatest needs. Next slide, please. The three greatest needs that we talked through in DuPage County were more affordable home ownership, specifically opportunities, more housing types kind of across the board, meaning anything from multifamily rental to single-family home ownership to pieces that we're going to talk a lot about, which is called the missing middle. We think about those as townhomes, fourplexes, things that fit well into a community but provide for more housing and more housing opportunity. And the last piece there was ensuring that these are community-led solutions, right? That these are coming from DuPage County residents, from DuPage County leaders, and that conversation is ongoing and led by the county. Next slide, please. So in one of those main buckets that we took in the full housing action plan, which you have access to, there were kind of three main parts. What we really honed in on in DuPage County was enabling homes in more places. So you're going to hear a little bit about what we were talking through about expanding the existing land inventory that DuPage already has, and then creating what's called a land bank. Land banks exist in Illinois. There are several areas where they're operational. However, they're not operational right now in DuPage. We also talked about supporting a community land trust. Community land trusts help ensure that affordability through a variety of different mechanisms like deed restrictions and organizational stewardship. And then the last piece we talked about was enabling the county to establish an affordable housing trust fund. This is something that cities and counties across the country have been doing to basically, and you've already taken a big step in that in allocating funding toward housing solutions, but that housing trust fund helps administer and expend those funds in ways that the county sees appropriate. Next slide, please. So a little bit about land banks, and you'll hear a little bit more about them. So land banks have the ability to acquire, renovate, and sell properties to provide value to the county, though that might be in the form of formerly blighted properties that can be made livable again. That might be brand new affordable housing, or it might be actually holding land to help determine the best, what we often call the best and highest use, right? A lot of times these land banks are created, they can be created as separate entities, meaning they can be separate nonprofit organizations, they can be created by a municipal or a local government. But what's important is that it helps return these properties to the tax rolls. A lot of time these properties are not generating revenue for the county, and in many times they're actually a net liability because you may be having to do some sort of maintenance to it. There may be, as mentioned before, there may be some sort of blight or other issue with the property. And so by placing those properties into a land bank, you then have dedicated staff who are able to, not you as the county, I should say, the land bank has dedicated staff to help renovate those properties, to help get them in a condition where then they can be placed back onto the tax rolls and that they can be a net asset to the county instead of being a net liability. Of course, the added benefit here is that land banks can help create that affordable housing piece. A lot of times land banks are paired, and we're seeing this more and more throughout the country, with a community land trust. So that way the land bank provides a pipeline of parcels, whether they be existing homes that are renovated or maybe vacant land that can be built on, and the community land trust can then oversee the stewardship of that, the sale, the resale of those properties to maintain that affordability. We also, next slide, discussed the Housing Trust Fund, as I mentioned earlier. The great thing about establishing a Housing Trust Fund is that it can be used to support what you deem appropriate as a county regarding a variety of housing needs you may have. Just a few pieces that housing trust funds across the country use include construction of new affordable housing units. It could be rehabilitation of existing housing units. That might be to improve livability. It might be to improve energy efficiency that brings the overall cost of living down for that homeowner, that tenant. It can also provide rental assistance if there are tenants who are earning, below the area median income. And it also can support homeownership programs, right? Getting residents ready for homeownership, ensuring that they have the ability to take that next step. Now, as you know, the county allocated funding toward housing solutions to help potentially establish this, right? And so such a fund could provide those grants, could provide low-rate loans potentially to developers and organizations who are looking to create or preserve affordable housing in the county. So next slide, please. Sorry, this is my last slide here. I really want to thank the county for taking this step. This is not a small thing that the county worked on over the last year and a half. To give you a sense of what your Mecklenburg County counterparts are doing, they have issued and have selected somebody through an RFP process to create a revolving loan fund for their affordable housing. So the county has never had, they have about a half dozen municipalities, so slightly fewer than DuPage, but they are working with their municipalities to create a countywide revolving loan fund that then they can put they can put certain affordability requirements on in order for developers or community organizations to access those funds at a lower rate, because they can offer those funds through their municipal bonding process at a lower than market rate. So that's what your counterparts in Mecklenburg are doing. Here today, you'll hear a little bit about how the next steps are occurring through our work. But I do just want to take a minute to say thank you to the many, many people, including the people in this room, who helped in this process and have gotten the county to this point. In the county specifically, I want to thank the chair for her leadership and for ensuring, and members of the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee, which I know is all of you, to be so dedicated to this process. I also want to thank Paul and Mary and the county staff, as well as Jeremy and the county board staff, and Jessica as well. And then our members at the Federation, who did a wonderful amount of work in reaching communities that I think sometimes are not as naturally able to either attend the meeting or be able to kind of go in depth on what housing needs might be. So thank you to Dave and to Mimi and to Rosa Sella and your staff for doing that as well. And I just cannot express enough how grateful I am that we were able to do this work together. And if you have additional questions, I know I'll have time for questions today, but my contact info I always try to provide. So. Thank you, Chair.
Do we want to finish the presentation in whole first? Okay, let's do that, then we'll do questions.
Thank you, Colby. Next slide. Thank you. So today we're going to go over where we are today and where we're going to be going. As Colby laid out, there are several challenges that we still face. We'll go through that: land availability, zoning complexities, regulatory costs, and the recent text amendments that have reduced the challenges to promote affordable housing and what we've done so far. So we can go to the next slide. So stuff you guys have done to address this issue. First big one, actually one of my first meetings here since coming on staff, which was awesome to go through, was reducing the minimum lot width from 66 feet to 50 feet on historic lots. This effort will do an amazing thing to ease the burden of regulations to create workforce housing and affordable housing in the county. So that is something you have already done. It's already working. There's 20 property owners who are already taking advantage of this. And reducing the time and costs in this is invaluable to addressing our housing needs. Next slide. Another big one that we did at that same meeting was the accessory dwelling unit change to our zoning. Sheila is applauding that in her seat. This is a very important tool in our toolbox, and we've already done this. So being able to do this really does change that housing type mix that Colby had spoken about in a way to address these housing needs through a robust and diverse housing stock in the county. Another change that happened this January, which is incredibly important too, by increasing the stock of housing, putting some downward pressure on those costs, or the downward pressure on the cost of housing in the county, is allowing single-family homes on principal arterial roads to be converted into 2 units. Simple supply and demand there. If you double the supply, the price will go down. And there's 483 eligible properties that fall under that designation. And with that, I am going to hand it off to Mary Keating to go over some of the building we've been doing around this issue.
Good morning. I thought it was important, next slide please, I thought it was important just to remind the board that we do have some really significant affordable housing projects that are either recently completed or are underway. Just a reminder, all of these are funded with either CDBG or home funds from the federal government, from U.S. Housing and Urban Development. We certainly hope that those funds continue to be provided to local communities. But just to recap some of the really significant work that, and I want to shout out our community development staff who just do an incredible job of shepherding these projects through. But in 2022, we completed senior housing development in Warrenville called Alden Warrenville with 71 units of affordable senior housing. We provided $2.5 million in home funds, but it was a $21 million project. We work with a small organization called Community Housing and Development. They are a nonprofit that creates and maintains affordable rental housing. They completed the renovation of a single-family home in Glen Ellen that is now being rented to an income-eligible family. Next slide, please. Currently under construction, we have another Alden project, 62 units in Addison. We're putting $5.2 million in home funds into that $26 million project. And just Friday, we helped Seguin Services close on a property in Villa Park that'll be used for a community integrated living arrangement for 5 adults with disabilities. That Alden project we hope will be leasing up by the end of this calendar year. I think there will be a ribbon cutting coming up probably in the late summer, early fall that you'll all be invited to. And Seguin is already working on getting that property up to speed. Next slide, please. And then we have 2 very large projects that we are currently looking at from an underwriting perspective, from an eligibility perspective. Just last week at the Home Advisory Committee, we brought forward the Full Circle Communities project, which many of you may have been following in the press, a really significant project in Glen Ellen. We've set aside $1.75 million for that project. It's estimated to be a total of $23 million project, but that's going to be 47 units of affordable rental housing in Glen Ellen. And then we're working with Gorman and Company on a proposal for 71 units of affordable housing in Naperville. We are again looking at the underwriting, looking at that whole development plan, and hope to bring a recommendation for a set aside of our home funds, probably to the next Home Advisory Committee meeting, which will be in April. Again, I just thought it was really important to make sure the board is aware that there are a lot of things happening. We're really, just these projects alone are my quick math was about 250 units of affordable housing that we've either recently completed or will be soon underway. So, thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you, Mary, for outlining that. So as it stands today, currently state law allows us to create a land bank and a housing trust under the Affordable Housing Planning and Appeals Act. The rules around that is it's limited to 0 to 80% of AMI. You can do production rehab, adaptive use of rehousing, acquisition of land, home and multi-use structures can be used in part as residential use, as well as weatherization, emergency repairs, and preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing. So the prescriptions in the state law allow a lot of flexibility on what you can implement on the county level or the local level to address your community needs. So that is where we're at. So next slide, please. There are some issues with the current statute that do come in, I wouldn't say conflict, but do pose some challenges based off of the conversations we've had around affordable housing. The first one is with that 80% cap on the work that we can do, it does limit the missing middle work that we could do for that 80 to 120% AMI that would address some of those home ownership programs and the housing stock that truly is missing in DuPage County. There are certain technical issues that exist within it that do, according to our lawyer Connor, create some stuff with like PDUs and just density issues and stuff that exist that we may have to look at, but that's something we'll have to vet out through our process. So next slide. So our next steps on this would be to create a, to go through this. So today we're at a crossroads. We have done a lot of work on this so far, making zoning less onerous, to approving these federally funded projects that are creating these 250 units of affordable housing that exist. The purpose of these next steps would be able to make that $5 million allocation more effective in addressing this need. So we are at the point where our first step would be to have our ad hoc housing solutions committee put together the regulatory framework that makes sense for the county to set up a land bank and housing trust. And then the next step we would have to take is to go and take state legislation, which would be in line with our legislative agenda we just passed, to address that missing middle and hit that 80 to 120% AMI to address those types of projects. Again, thanks everyone for the work on this, but with that, I would open the floor to questions from us.
Okay, Member Cahill was first.
Thank you very much. So, thank you for the presentation. My question was about the land banking, and see, it's my understanding that land banking is for large inventories of vacant and abandoned properties, properties with little or no market use, properties with delinquent taxes, title problems. These are things that we don't see a lot of in DuPage County. So why would we use that land banking tool to, and second, that's my first question. Second is, in terms of the land banking tool, would you use eminent domain then to acquire a property, or would you like offer a market rate, whatever it was in that property? And then the third thing is the missing middle, that income cap. That is our biggest problem here in DuPage County. So how would the land bank help with that? I don't think it does, because it goes to more, that's my question.
Relative to the land bank, the county has an inventory of properties right now that are county-owned properties. We've obtained them through various means. In addition, the county is acquiring more properties through gifts from property owners and banks that own these properties. Through our Clean and Lean program, our neighborhood revitalization program, we have found instances where we have taken people or banks who own property through the court system, and in some instances, the banks have said, we can't do anything with the property, we'll give it to the county. So we're inventorying that property now. We also have instances where we have, through the Clean and Lean program, clean properties up, lean the properties. In the past, what we would do is when we gained ownership of that property as an asset because the person couldn't pay the lien, we would just auction the property off. We're not doing that anymore. We're inventorying that property. So we're starting to create a inventory of land that we cannot put into any kind of affordable or workforce housing program. We would have to auction that off. Having a land bank would allow us to be able to use that property, that inventory of property, to incentivize developers to build some of our housing. In addition, we would not be looking to use condemnation to gain properties. We would and could, however, use some of the monies that have been allocated to this program to go out and purchase abandoned properties before we spend a lot of time and money going through the court system. It might be advantageous for us to simply just go in and buy those properties. In addition, one of the things that you'll be hearing in the ad hoc committee is that we might be more aggressive in terms of the tax sales on properties. We are not involved in tax sales right now. There's a whole group out there that is involved in tax sales. The county might be able to get involved in those tax sales as well. Tax sales are usually pieces of property that are abandoned. Not only are people not paying their taxes on them, but the properties are in pretty bad shape, so likely we're involved in those anyway. As it relates to your last question, it was, again? Missing middle. So the land bank, the more inventory we have, coupled with Community Land Trust and Housing Trust, which is the ability to create programs, we could use holistically all three of those programs and a few others to actually then start putting RFPs out into the system, asking for developers to come in and start to develop not only market rate developments, but affordable and workforce housing within those market rate developments. So it's not just one of those prongs that would do it, but the land bank along with the Housing Trust and the Land Trust will allow us to actually start to tackle some of those issues.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. I'm so happy to see this presentation this afternoon. This was my world with my husband, Advanced Property Solutions. We renovated blighted properties for first-time home buyers. So I've been talking about tiny homes since I ran for office in 2018. I'd still like to see that in properties that we own that would not be impacted by a NIMBY sort of a neighborhood, because kids these days don't want 1,800 square feet. So that is a good way to allow that step into the real estate market. I have a lot of notes here that I took along the way. Do we have any mechanism, or would we be able to promote donations of properties to the county through probate or tax lien type situation?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good.
We have sort of backed into it through our Clean and Lean program, where the banks say, we understand you have a program out here. You're coming after us. Rather than take us to court, how about we just give you the land? We can expand that, once again, to being involved in tax sales. We can start to get the word out to the banks and the mortgage companies or the banks that, this program is available. You can start donating your land, absolutely. Just recently, this board heard the notion that we had a lien on some properties, and in order to satisfy that lien, we are working to take land instead of cash money, and that's another way that we could gain properties as well.
Good. So if you're going to buy off the tax sales, because I'm mindful of investors that are doing this kind of work, that are coming to buy those properties off of your tax sales, would it be something that had been coming up on the tax sale with no buyers, or would you go ahead and bid right off the bat on homes that come up on those rolls?
Well, most recently there's been no buyers, but as part of our next step with the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee, we'll start to probe whether or not we want to have the sheriff indicate that no one was interested in buying the property, as the county interested in, to actually participating in those tax sales, being competing with the tax sale buyers. And that's
right.
something we'll talk about at the Ad Hoc
Okay,
Housing
good,
Solutions
good.
Committee.
So how did I miss that we took out the familial relationship on the ADUs?
That
'Cause
was,
I thought that was part of it. Initially, it had to have at least one person living in one of those structures.
the longstanding ADU was the person had to be a member of the family and the person had to be 62 years of
Exactly.
age or older. The current, or the new one that was just recently passed, was that the people who are living in the ADUs do not need to be 62 years of age or older, and they don't need to be a familiar
okay.
relationship. The only familiar thing on there is that the person who owns the property has to live in either the ADU or in the principal.
Okay, maybe I just didn't read that the same way.
And the idea there is that we want whoever owns the property to live on the property, to take ownership in the property, to maintain it.
Okay.
But the other person, no
that's
family
my
relationship required at all.
And then my last comment, two more, I'm sorry. So the principal arterial conversions, I'd like to see that changed to properties that abut major roadways but are not necessarily egress and ingress from those roads. So that's just my comment on that. And then the CDBG and home housing projects, kudos to those projects in Glen Ellen and Naperville, but if you're trying to build affordable housing in the most expensive cities to live in DuPage County, I don't think that tracks. So I'd like to see more of those in Addison or West Chicago or places like that.
Well, I think from an economic standpoint, that's an excellent point. There's also a principle of creating opportunity for folks and making sure that individuals at all levels of the economic spectrum have the opportunity to live in places where they work or where their kids want to go to school or perhaps where they grew up. So, but it is, yeah, you can certainly look at both sides of that issue.
Not disparaging the effort at all. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, Member Ozog and then Member LaPlante.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was approached several years ago by constituents who were particularly interested in the Glen Ellen program. Some of this housing is going to serve a disabled community, again, people who live in the town. And I really want to thank the village. They bought the property. It was a hotel, several buildings, definitely run down, and the village purchased it. I think about $2 million, and then it was a year-plus long process, but they just approved it February 25th, so it will be going forward, and I'm really thankful to the Village of Glen Ellen for their interest in this. But my question is, and this is, I think, for Mary, I was really not clear on our involvement with what I see as a municipal project, and I'm happy to see this. And so I see Naperville, I see Glen Ellen. Could you speak a little bit about the federal funds and our ability to spread this money out, not just Glen Ellen, Naperville, et cetera? Because this is great, and I certainly hope this funding continues, but as we know, everything is at risk right now. So if you could speak to that a little bit further and what we're able to do with those federal funds.
So basically with these federal funds, we serve as one of the lenders.
So we're a conduit.
Yeah, so we're providing one of the layers of financing. You know, some of these projects can have 6 or 8 or 14 layers of financing, and so we're one of the layers of financing. The issues related to building codes, zoning, all of that remains within the municipality. So we're strictly serving as a lender who then places certain restrictions on the property in terms of income eligibility, what rent can be charged, those kinds of things. We have in our portfolio over the years, we probably have, I think we have at least 900, maybe close to 1,000 units spread throughout the county, and I can certainly provide you the map. We've got projects all throughout. We probably have a project in almost every municipality in DuPage County. Very few, I think, we've ever done in unincorporated. So we work very closely with the municipalities. They're 100% in charge of all of the regulatory requirements. We are one of the financing agents.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Member LaPlante.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to say that's my district, Glen Ellen, and affordable housing and housing that helps adults with disabilities have a place to live is needed everywhere. Those needs they do not know geography. There are needs in every district in DuPage County, and I would encourage us to not focus on where things shouldn't be. We're growing this program, so I want to hear where it can be, where it should be. It should be everywhere, and there are needs in this community. I have 2 friends with adult children with disabilities who are thrilled beyond measure that they're going to have a place to live. So there is a need in Glen Ellen and in every corner of this county. Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, Member Yu and then Member Schwartzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question actually has to do with the Housing Trust Fund. How would we be putting money into it? Is it something that we would be budgeting into from this point forward? I know that we do have several $1 million still in there, but obviously we would need to be growing it.
So those are specifics that the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee would come up with, because there are many ways to do this. Just like, as Member Cahill referenced, there is like a traditional use for land banks, but the state law does give flexibility to local communities to structure these in ways that make sense for their local communities.
But specifically for the Housing Trust Fund, is that something that we can do as a county to determine and not necessarily legislatively?
Yes, the local housing trust fund would be ran by us, but we would have to come up with the enacting ordinances to create those systems that are in accordance with the state law. Okay.
Member Schwartzy. Oh. Member Schwartzy.
Thank you. I think this is a question for Mary. Following up with Member Ozog's question about federal funding. So, I've been reading that the state, everything goes from the federal to the state to downhill, I guess. And I've been reading that the state has been having trouble obtaining some of the federal funding that's already been approved. So do we know what the status of that is? Have they been able to get some of these home funds, CDBG funds?
Well, specific to CDBG and home, those funds don't flow through the state. We're what's called an entitlement community, so we get those funds directly. We've had no issue drawing funds down. As I said, we've got these major construction projects that we're undertaking right now. We've had no issue. There was that one day where we were locked out, where everybody was locked out. In terms of the future of those programs, it's really unknown. If the continuing resolution gets extended through September, then we should know that we're safe for 2025. I've heard nothing in 2026, but certainly they're up for discussion at the federal level.
Thank you.
Member Eckhoff.
Somebody mentioned that density could be a problem in some of the developments, and I think at least the most efficient way to try to get affordable housing is to reduce the size of the lot. I thought Connor was the person that was a density expert.
I'm going to let Paul take this since he's
Paul.
Yeah.
So, as we mentioned in our slides, one of the things that is always going to be an issue, whether it's for market rate or affordable housing, is the availability of lots and land available to develop. One of the things that we've done over the last year and a half is change our zoning ordinance in 3 ways to make, at least, well, I should say in 2 ways, to make as-of-right development occur. And that's with opening up about 1,000 pieces of land, parcels of land, that are available right now as of right to develop. In the past, you'd have to come in and ask for zoning relief. That's a protracted process. In addition, the legislature, the state legislation gives municipalities the ability to weigh in on that, and that creates even more issues in terms of moving the entitlement process forward. We've opened up, as I said, about 1,000 pieces of property available as of right now. We've got about 20 people taking advantage of that. The more the word gets out, I think you'll see a lot more development of those
Are all
projects.
those lots together, or are they spread out?
They're throughout the entire county. They're in areas that were originally platted back in the 1920s. Some houses were developed on those properties, Gary Avenue Gardens, Downers Grove Gardens, a lot of the gardens throughout the county that were part of the original subdivisions back in the 1920s. Those lots are now available. Our ADUs, those are conditional uses, but it makes it a lot easier for people to come in and now have rental units in existing accessory dwelling unit, or existing accessory buildings on single-family properties and in the homes. And in addition, this additional approximately 500 parcels of land on major roadways, where you've got single-family homes adjacent to commercial and industrial developments in the municipalities where these homes are sort of left out in the lurch. Those properties are now available to be converted into 2 units as of right. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was talking about density. I mean, single-family houses split into 481 of them around the county probably isn't going to impact density. And these lots, vacant lots that we've now made buildable, spread throughout the county is not going to affect density. But what I thought would affect density is when we reduce the lot size from 66 to 50, which I think is a good idea, because that's how you get more affordable housing. But that's why I asked, are these lots together? Because one lot going from 66 to 50 just leaves a vacant 16-foot lot when you build the house.
No, the lots we're talking about are already existing. These are existing parcels of land.
I understand that you're going to change it from 66 to 50, but is there a big tract of land there, so you're going to put in 50 houses?
Yeah, the lots already exist, so it's not a matter that you would subdivide the properties. The parcels are already in existence. They've already been subdivided.
They already exist as 50-foot wide. So
Yeah,
now they
50-foot
become
wide.
Buildable where there's.
Right, before they weren't buildable, now they
So
are.
that shouldn't affect density either.
No, well,
because they're spread out.
it only affects density from the standpoint that you can now have a house on there, whereas before it was just vacant land.
But one new house in a subdivision is not big, like 50 lots being built on right next to another subdivision. When these houses are built, do they have to make some type of contribution to the parks and schools like other subdevelopments?
No, because the lots are already subdivided. The subdivisions already existed. Most of the subdivisions that we're talking about predated the school park donation requirements that occurred back in the 70s. So they would not have to donate to the school and the park districts. Now, the other thing that we're working on, we're going to be bringing forward another text amendment that would actually create additional density in residential homes that will be vetted before the Zoning Board of Appeals and be able to be voted on by the county board. I think one of the things that Connor was talking about is that when you look at any state legislation, one of the concerns is we've got existing zoning categories that have bulk requirements, setbacks, floor area ratio requirements, minimum lot size requirements. One of the things that we'll be bringing to the Ad Hoc Housing Committee is creating new zoning categories that would allow us to create more opportunities for subdivisions and create more density in certain areas of the county. We don't know what that's going to be right now, but we're going to be bringing that forward to the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee.
Would only be for county property.
Only for unincorporated
So how many
county
lots
properties.
or how many areas do we have where that's really going to make an impact?
We've got multiple areas. Yeah, we've identified probably about 10 areas throughout the county that are ripe for redevelopment.
What's the total acreage?
I don't know. I can get that for you.
I mean, are we going to put 2 houses there, or are we going to put 20 or 30 houses there?
There's the opportunity, depending on where they're located, to go with duplexes or even do some multifamily on some properties. We, for instance, we have single-family residential zone properties that are on major roadways, and those properties they're not rezoned, but adjacent properties in municipalities have been rezoned to commercial industrial zoning districts. So these single-family homes have been impacted by the roadway, by the development in the municipality. When the county has tried to rezone some of these properties to either multifamily or commercial, it's been very difficult to do because of the ability of municipalities to weigh in on our zoning. One of the things we're going to be talking with the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee is the ability for the county to have county-sponsored rezoning of properties. In some instances, maybe identify the properties that the county owns and then rezone those properties so those properties are ready to be developed. The developer doesn't have to go through the entitlement process. Those properties are already in place to be developed. Right now, this board has seen when zoning cases come in, it's a combination of rezoning or conditional uses, and there are issues with those developments, none the least of which is the ability for municipalities to weigh in and in some instances impact the voting requirement on a rezoning to a supermajority vote. We understand that issue. We will be working with our partner communities on some of these housing solution programs, but the idea there is to maybe develop new zoning districts so that the county would be the sponsoring zoning relief group as opposed to an individual property owner, so that when the property owner was to come in and work with us on one of these housing programs, it would be a turnkey. They would just come in to get a building permit. They would not have to go through the entitlement process. The entitlement process adds time and adds cost to the development, which increases the cost of housing. So those are things that we're going to be talking about with the Ad Hoc Housing Solutions Committee.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for the work. Do you have, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Member Galassi.
No worries. I just had a quick question for Paul, and if you answered this, I apologize. You just said that the county's acquiring more parcels, and do you have an approximation of how many we own?
do. We can get those to you.
Okay.
We've got an inventory of county-owned properties that we've had for quite some time that we've acquired through Public Works, through Division of Transportation, through DOT, and through the Stormwater Department. We also have properties that we've acquired through our Clean and Lean program and simply where property owners who are in a code enforcement action have donated their properties to us, and we can get you those properties. So rather than auctioning those properties off, we've kept them in our inventory in anticipation of potentially having a bank.
Great. Yeah, I'd be curious just to get a list, an inventory of how many we have and the sizing of each of those, just to get an idea of what the potential is.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all very much for that and the work, and I want to thank the board for your commitment to, so far it's been quite an education. We've learned an awful lot about what we can do and maybe things we need to change so we can do more. I'd particularly like to thank Member Tonatore and Member Rutledge for co-chairing and leading this effort. So thank you. And the journey continues. I'd like to say thank you to Colby and our team for the presentation and for framing the housing issues in DuPage. As we talk about affordable housing, I think it's important to acknowledge the work this county is doing through our various programs. I'm particularly gratified to know we have set aside $1.7 million of federal home investment partnership funds for the affordable and supportive housing development in Glen Ellen, which we talked about quite a bit. I know Mary and the community services team will keep us in the loop as that project moves forward. Issues such as affordable housing, food insecurity, public safety, mental health are just some of the important issues that directly affect our residents. In the area of mental health, I want to respond to those of you who have reached out regarding the pending settlement of the Jurado case. The state's attorney's office advises us that the settlement is still not finalized, and any comments about the case are appropriate for executive session only. This case involved a 50-year-old woman who was mentally ill and died in our DuPage County Jail. This was a horrific tragedy and an example of a perfect storm of failures. Too often, people like Mrs. Jurado wind up incarcerated. Too often, there are long wait lines and few beds. In a few publicly funded hospitals to accept people who need mental health treatment. And too often, mental health crises lead to physical crises that become life-threatening. Moving forward, the responsibility to enforce any change that may be necessary lies with the sheriff, the person responsible for the jail. In a situation such as this, it is reasonable for us as elected officials to expect that the sheriff has undertaken a painstaking review of events and policies that enacted new policies so that such a tragedy does not ever occur again. As a county, we are working to support people suffering with mental health and addiction crises With your help and with the DuPage Health Department, we are building a crisis recovery center that will provide that needed mental health and addiction triage, keeping people out of jails and emergency rooms. The CRC is scheduled to come online late this summer. I believe it will make a life-changing difference to those who so desperately need mental health and addiction services. Moving forward, I hope the sheriff will do his part to maintain safety in the jail and provide the appropriate necessary medical and mental health services to those in his care. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. I seek a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay. 25-0700 DuPage County regular meeting minutes, Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. 25-0610 2/21/2025 auto debit pay list. 25-0612 2/21/2025 pay list. 25-0632 2/25/2025 pay list. 25-0652 2/26/2025 auto debit pay list. 25-0662 2/28/2025 pay list. 25-0628 3/4/2025 pay list. 25-0701 Clerk's Monthly Report of Receipts and Disbursements, February 2025. 25-0686 change orders to various contracts as specified in the attached packet. All in favor? Okay, and we'll move on to Vice Chair Childress and County Board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on. To accept 25-703 County Board member to attend the ISACO Lobby Day in Springfield from March 19th to March 20th. Expenses to include transportation, lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diem for the approximate total of $435.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Childress.
Yes.
Member Covert. Member Desart. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans. Member Galassi. Member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Rutledge. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. And Member Cahill.
Member Childress.
I'd like a motion to accept 25-702 County Board member to attend the ISACO Lobby Day in Springfield from March 18, 2025 to March 20th, 2025. Expenses to include transportation, lodging, miscellaneous expenses, and per diem for the approximate total of $660.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Vice Chair Childress. Okay, Finance and Member Garcia.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. For committee update, we had a great discussion this morning regarding the public comment rules. We did do a consensus, and the rules will be remaining the same now. And then, as was clarified, we do need a 2/3 vote if we want to increase those when the public comment deems necessary. Moving on, I make a motion to approve FICO 000125, recommendation for the approval of an increase to purchase order 67360001 serve issued to Mesero Insurance Services, Inc., Safety National, to increase the purchase order by $12,886 to pay the adjusted premium for workers' compensation insurance for a new contract total amount not to exceed $212,637, an increase of 6.45%.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Heather. Yes. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Rutledge. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert. Member Desart. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans. And Member Galassi.
Member Garcia.
I make a motion to approve FIR 0050 25 budget transfers 3/11/2025 for various companies and accounting units.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Garcia. Okay, we have Animal Services and Member Krajewski. I would just like to say that I was over there last week or the week before. Fell in love with this beautiful little puppy named Romeo, who went somewhere else. But I'll find my guy. But you guys, it's so beautiful over there. I mean, I can't even tell you. It's so exciting. The amount of work, the work that Member Desart and Member Krajewski have done is something we all need to be so incredibly proud of. And also, there is a gala coming up. Do you remember the date, Member Desart? April 25th. Okay, and I'd like to invite any board members who would like to go. I have a table, and I would love to host you. Okay, I see three. Okay, we'll get the numbers later. Okay, we're going to move on to economic development and Member U. Oh, I'm sorry, development and Member Tonatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of DCO 11-25 zoning 2477 to approve a conditional use for a planned development in the R4 zoning district seeking 10 detached and 61 attached dwelling units, 14,172 square foot divisible shopping center, 2 place assembly buildings that will total approximately 54,963 square feet to be used for religious services, study and education, with an exception to increase the height from 36 feet to approximately 40 feet.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Tornatori.
Aye.
Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert. Member Desart. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans. Member Galassi. Member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Rutledge. And Member Schwarzy.
Member Tonatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DCO 12-25 zoning 2485, a conditional use to reduce the interior side setback for an existing shed from 3 feet to 2 feet.
Leave is granted. Member Tonatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I move approval of DCO 13-25 zoning 2486 for a variation to reduce the rear yard setback from 25 feet to 8 feet for a new addition, and a variation to reduce the rear yard setback from 3 feet to approximately 1.5 feet for a new patio.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Tonatori.
Thank you,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
economic development and Member U.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For my update, just wanted to say, last month, Site Selection Magazine named the Chicagoland Metropolitan Statistical Area, which includes all of DuPage County, as the #1 metro in the U.S. for corporate relocation and investment. And in order to be named the #1 metro, the investment criteria includes a $1 million investment or 20,000 square feet of new non-retail development or corporate headquarter relocation, or the creation of 25 new jobs. So this is quite an accomplishment and a testament to our position as a premier global business location and an attractive place in which to invest. But perhaps what is more remarkable is that this is the 12th consecutive year at the top for us, for the Chicagoland MSA, and that's right, in the words of Greg Bedelov, quote, "It's an even dozen, a 12-pack of success, or a quad-peat of a three-peat." End quote. This ranking, based on project count, highlights the region's global economic strength, business-friendly environment, and deep talent pool. These competitive advantages are championed worldwide by our partners at Choose DuPage, as well as GSEP, our Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership, which, as many of you know, is our collaboration between the city and 7 surrounding counties, established in 2023 to drive investment and business expansion across the region. I'm certain that Greg Bedelov would be happy to share more information with any board member interested. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Member Yu. And environment and Member Rutledge.
No voting issues today. I just wanted to say that we've kind of beefed up the, on our Cool DuPage website, Staples Office Supply is an amazing recycler. They will take in anything that they sell, batteries all the way up. So I just want to let people know that, and yay, Staples.
Okay, thank you, Member Rutledge. Human Services and Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to our small human services grant, just a reminder, April 4th is the deadline for applications, or the portal closes on April 4th. We currently have 14 applications spread out through the 6 districts. Every district at least has, I think, 2 applications in. Not all of them are filled out correctly, so our staff, Mary Catherine and her staff, are responding to those applicants who may have forgotten something or not filled out the application appropriately. Now, we get somewhere 80% of our applications come in like the last week. And obviously that puts a strain on our finance staff. So if you guys have organizations out there that you're working with, please have them, if possible, have them submit an application sooner than later. It just speeds things up at the end and creates a little bit less work for our staff. So on to our agenda items. I'll move on item HSP 1325, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order issued to Nova Staff Healthcare Services for supplemental nursing staffing services for the Care Center for the period April 13th, 2025 through April 12th, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $650,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Schwarzy.
Aye.
Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert. Member Desart. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans. Member Galassi. Member Garcia. Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. And Member Rutledge.
Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on HSP 1425, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order issued to Bright Star Care of Central DuPage for supplemental nursing staffing services for the Care Center for the period April 13th, 2025 through April 12th, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $330,000.
Leave is granted. Member Schwarzy.
Finally, I move on HSP 1525, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order issued to RCM Healthcare Services for supplemental nursing staffing services for the Care Center for the period April 13th, 2025 through April 12th, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $100,000.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Schwarzy. Judicial and Public Safety and Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on JPSCO-2-25, amendment to purchase order 7357-1 serve issued to Heartland Business Systems to increase the contract encumbrance in the amount of $23,213.20 for a new contract total not to exceed $220,089.81.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Evans.
Aye.
Member Galassi. Member Garcia. Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Rutledge. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert. Member Desart. And Member Eckhoff.
Okay. Member Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to move on JPSP-13-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract to National Auto Fleet Group to furnish and deliver 4 Ford Broncos for the Department of Probation and Court Services for the period of March 11th, 2025 through November 8th, 2025 for a total contract amount not to exceed $128,842.16.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to move on JPSP-14-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Sutton Ford, Inc. to furnish and deliver 2 black Ford F-150 police responder crew cabs for the Sheriff's Office for the period of March 11th, 2025 through November 8th, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $111,922.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to move on JPSP-15-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Curry Motors Frankfurt, Inc. to furnish and deliver 2 blue Ford Transit 350 cargo vans for the Sheriff's Office for the period of March 11th, 2025 through November 8th, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $130,770.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to move on JPSP-16-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Flock Safety to provide continuation of the Flock ALPR program for the Sheriff's Office for the period of March 1st, 2025 through February 28th, 2029 for a contract amount not to exceed $777,602.74.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to move on JPSP-17-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Warehouse Direct, Inc. to provide hair and body shampoo for detainees for the Sheriff's Office for the period of March 11th, 2025 through March 10th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $40,560.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Evans. Legislative and Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Springfield, the Illinois General Assembly returns to session today. They worked through Thursday. The Senate is up this week. Only 2 weeks remain in the session to consider legislation at the committee level, but as of now, there are 1,427 House bills pending and, 1,838 Senate bills pending, so there might be a deadline extension because there's a lot to get through there. Springfield legislators are scheduled to adjourn on May 31st, and as I said, scheduled. They might not. And with that, I'd like to move to approve LEG-R-0001-25, the resolution adopting the county's 2025 federal legislative agenda.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Member Desart? Member Eckhoff? Member Evans? Member Galassi? Member Garcia? Member Heather? Member Honig? Member Krajewski? Member LaPlante? Member Ozog? Member Rutledge? Member Schwarzy? Member Tornatori? Member Yu?
Aye.
Member Zay? Member Cahill? Member Childress? And Member Covert.
Okay, thank you, Member Desart. Public Works and Vice Chair Childress.
I seek approval for FMP 1125, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Kimwise Ecological Pest Management Services for full extermination and pest control services for the county facility for a period of March 12, 2025 through March 11, 2027 for a total contract amount not to exceed $39,900 per lowest possible responsible bid.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Childress?
Yes.
Member Covert? Member Desart? Member Eckhoff? Member Evans? Member Galassi? Member Garcia? Member Heather? Member Honig? Member Krajewski? Member LaPlante? Member Ozog? Member Rutledge? Member Schwarzy? Member Tornatori? Member Yu? Member Zay? And Member Cahill.
Okay, Member Childress.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As a reminder, the Heritage Gallery Replacement Project currently has an open survey available for feedback. As of this morning, we had 114 surveys that have been completed. All DuPage County residents and, of course, the county board members are encouraged to participate. A link to the survey has been posted on the county's social media accounts and can be found by visiting the facilities management homepage on the county's main website. The survey will close 9 a.m. this Monday, March 17th.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Childress. Stormwater and Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 5-25, a contract to ComEd for electrical utility supply and distribution services to connect county facilities for stormwater management from April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2029, amount not to exceed $430,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Zay?
Aye.
Member Cahill? Member Childress? Member Covert? Member Desart? Member Eckhoff? Member Evans? Member Galassi? Member Garcia? Member Heather? Member Honig? Member Krajewski? Member LaPlante? Member Ozog? Member Rutledge? Member Schwarzy? Member Tornatori? And Member Yu.
Aye. Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 6-25, approval and agreement between the County of DuPage and V3 Construction to provide professional native vegetation management services for stormwater management from May 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2026, $125,000.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Zay. Technology and Member Covert.
No committee update, Madam Chair.
Okay, Transportation and Member Ozog.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want everyone to know that we've been asked and will be hosting the Metra monthly meeting on Wednesday, March 19th. They will be in this room. 8:30 there is their finance meeting and 9:30 is their board meeting. And I also wanted to let the Transportation Department know that I did reconnaissance this morning on the Illinois Prairie Path. We have a few issues, but it doesn't look too bad after the winter, and it was slightly cold today. But get out there, and I hope I'm not putting any kind of bring on the snow curse by doing this. Anyway, okay, I move for approval of 250577, amendment to DTP 02224, issued to Energy City Corporation, doing business as Rack 'em Up Equipment Distributors, for the installation of 8 vertical rise lifts for fleet maintenance, to increase the contract in the amount of $41,320, a 5.37 increase due to unforeseen overhead conduit electrical wiring replacement work needed to complete the installation.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Ozog.
Yes.
Member Rutledge. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay. Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert. Member Desart. Member Eckhoff. Member Evans. Member Galassi. Member Garcia. Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski, and Member LaPlante.
Okay, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of item 250605, amendment to resolution DTP 024-1B20 issued to V3 Companies Limited for professional design Phase 2 engineering services for improvements along County Highway 23 Naperville Road from Warrenville Road to Ridgeland Avenue to increase the funding in the amount of $165,425.30, resulting in an amended contract total of $798,648.21, a cumulative increase of 36.19%.
Leave is granted. Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTP 001325, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Peterbilt, Illinois, doing business as JX Truck Center, Elmhurst, to furnish and deliver Cummins engine repair and replacement parts for the Division of Transportation for the period of April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $80,000 per renewal option under bid award 2410 DOT.
Leave is granted. Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTP 001425, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Al Warren Oil Company Incorporated to furnish and deliver gasoline and diesel fuel as needed for the Division of Transportation and Public Works for the period April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $1,750,000, Division of Transportation $1 million, Public Works $750,000, per renewal option under bid 2311 DOT, second of 3 renewals.
Leave is granted. Member Ozog.
Thank you. And finally, I move for approval of DTR 000225, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and York Township Road District for the York Township 2025 Road Maintenance Program, Section 25 9001 RS, no county cost.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Ozog. Okay, does anybody have anything under old business? Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for your remarks regarding the statement on the death of Mrs. Aguilar Hurtado. Thank you. I think you summed it up very well.
Thank you. Anybody else in old business? Okay, we have new business. Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say hello to the students of Mr. Wilbur from Hinsdale Central High School. It's nice to see a packed room of friendly young faces, and thank you to Mr. Wilbur for getting these kids engaged.
Thank you. I have to say I was tempted in Chair's remarks to ask who y'all were because I was so impressed, but I was even more impressed that you stayed for the entire meeting. That is civic engagement. Thank you so much. It's great to see you here, and thank you, Member Evans, for bringing them. Okay. And Member Galassi, both, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Bipartisanship is very important. Okay, is anybody else in new business? Member Eckhoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was able to attend the special call meeting for Public Works regarding the development of the gallery downstairs. And I just wanted to, I didn't get a chance to add any comments back then, but I'm hoping that we retain all of the people that are displayed down there and are able to open up the gallery to all the people that deserve that type of recognition. But there was some discussion about the cost of it, and I thought that it might make some sense to try to develop a parallel display over at the DuPage County Museum and ask them to participate in the funding of it, so that we could maybe have 5 separate sections or years where a certain group of people is displayed but rotated through the county. Because as we've all gotten to know, seeing the displays downstairs that have been there for 40 or so years, you've seen, it would be better to rotate some of them through. But for all the people that haven't been here much and haven't been at the museum much, it would be an additional attraction to be able to have a new set of people every year or 2 years to display. So thought that would save us some money and get everybody recognized.
Okay. Thank you, Member Eckhoff, and thank you to Member Childress for your leadership on this. I know you're making sure that all the voices are heard, and our Heritage Gallery we want to reflect history and change and all of the things that we're incredibly proud of here in DuPage County. Now I'm going to ask Lisa Smith to just do a brief presentation or explanation to all of you on OMA and FOIA.
And this is not meant to be a full presentation at all with regard to a FOIA. It's just a couple tips that, like we will try to, help you with every now and then. Of course, we are always available for a call if you have any question with regard, when you're responding to perhaps a FOIA or maybe when you find yourself in an open meeting situation. Wanted to go around, this is for you to keep, this is not executive session, so you don't have to return it. Just a quick reminder about what the definition of public records are. It's pretty expansive. It's all records, report, forms, writings, letters, memoranda, books, papers, maps, photographs, microfilms, cards, electronic data records, texts, just so that we're all on the same page, that have been prepared by or for or are having been or being used by, received by, or in the possession or under the control of the public body. So it's very expansive. There's really not anything that I can think of offhand to exclude. So it's a pretty expansive view. Keep that in mind when you're responding. The big thing too is to remember where these records are found. It's not just on the county server. Anything in your personal phones, emails, texts, those are, if they have to do with the conducting of public business, they are responsive to a FOIA request. So it doesn't matter that, I use my personal cell or my personal email. If it's pertaining to the matters of public business, it's FOIA-able. A little bit about what pertains to public business. You can be pretty sure that if it has to do with the county board, its committees, employees, matters that are likely to come before the board, it pertains to public business. And typically, the Attorney General and decisions, they interpret this broadly. So, if there's a question, it probably is more than likely pertaining to public business, and we need to be responsive when we're answering the FOIA. Subject to the Freedom of Information Act, it kind of works in concert with the Local Records Act. That determines how long a record is required to be kept. For most of the things that we're talking about, like when we're talking about emails, that aren't specific, just general emails that you're sending, there's a requirement that those are kept for a year. So I just want to call that to your attention because we don't often talk about the Local Records Act, but that works in concert with the Freedom of Information Act. Just a couple, little things. We have the chart again about Open Meetings Act. Just reminding you, I think you all are very comfortable with this, but we just thought we'd throw in the chart since we were doing this, just a reminder of what constitutes the majority of a quorum. Two big things to always remember. Don't reply all. That can be construed as a meeting. So you always want a blind carbon copy, so that way, the problem is whenever you if you reply all and you have communications that are regular and consistent, it can be construed as a meeting, and we want to avoid that. And finally, just as you're out and about, just a reminder, when you're at various functions, be mindful of who you're with, and be clear to avoid any topics that may come before your committee, because you may be there with a group of members from the board, but you want to make sure that you're avoiding any discussions about things that are going to come before even a committee, not just the whole county board. So just just a couple reminders there, just to, just to try to hopefully be helpful. But we're always available. I know that a lot of times specific questions will come up, and please contact us if you have those questions. There's no.
Member Evans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question about, I've had some FOIA requests throughout the time I've been on the board, and I never see what happens at the end of that. Is there something, especially if it's pertaining to me, can we get a record? Can we get a copy of what's been
Typically,
submitted?
the response only goes to the requester. You could FOIA that as well. I know that seems funny because you're the responder, but that's.
Okay, so that would be the mechanism, so just FOIA the FOIA?
Yes.
Yeah. You can FOIA the FOIA, or you may see it in the newspaper.
Or you know what you could do? You could also ask the person, if you know the requester, you could ask them for a copy as well. Yeah, well, we keep it, right, but we don't turn it out.
No. Okay. All right. Well, I know this is disappointing, but I'm informed we do not have any matters before us requiring us to enter into executive session. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Childress. I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 10 a.m.